My name is Alicia. I'm a Microsoft MVP for D365 Finance and Supply Chain. And today I want to walk you through the process of receiving customer payments. To do this, we're going to start out by going under Accounts Receivable, Payments, Customer Payment Journal. We're going to click New. And we're going to assign the journal name. The reason the journal name is important is because you can control the workflow or the approval process based upon the journal name. You can also control the voucher series. So when you're looking at your trial balance, if you would like for checks to have a different voucher series than say ACH payments, you can control that by using a different journal name. Again, not required to do those setup changes, but that does give you some flexibility around the detail and the approval process. In the description field, you can change the description if you want, or you can just leave it at the default. Next, we're going to click Enter Customer Payments. You'll notice that you do have the opportunity to switch companies. By default, it's going to go to the company that I'm currently in. You'll see I'm in USMF up here in the upper right-hand corner, so it defaulted to USMF. However, if I did want to do AR payments for a different legal entity, I would simply switch that to that legal entity here, and then the system would look up the customers in that legal entity and the customer subledger in that legal entity. I'm going to be using US 026 today as my customer. The payment reference would be the check number if you were paying with a check. If it was a wire or an ACH or something like that, you could just put some meaningful information or a code here that would help you then find that payment later. So I'm just going to put in a dummy check number here. Now I'm going to put in the amount. So this is the amount that was on the check or the ACH or the lockbox, whatever the form of payment was. So I'm going to say this is $10,000. You'll notice in the bottom half of the screen that it gives you the identifier, whether this came from an invoice, if it was a voucher, if it was an interest note, if it was a free text invoice, so on. The due date, the amount available to pay, and then you're also going to see the currency here. So again, this is in US dollars. If it was in euros or something of that nature, that information would be displayed here. You'll notice that there's a column called discount. This is the calculated discount based on the cash discount terms you have associated with this particular invoice. In my case, you can see that I have a discount that I could take of $60 based upon the calculation based upon the invoice amount and the calculation for the discount percent. The cash discount amount to take is where I can actually override that amount. If I wanted this to be $25, then I could override that here if I chose to do that. There's also a parameter setting. Some customers like to take discounts on partial payments. There is a parameter in Accounts Receivable Parameters that allows you to do cash discounts on partial payments. So just know that you can turn that on or off. Then a cash discount taken would be if you've already done a payment against this particular invoice and the discount was already taken, that would be displayed there. Now you'll notice that up here I have an amount of $10,000, but my amount to pay, or the balance of the particular invoice, is $11,940. The amount to pay was $12,000 minus the $60 makes it $11,940. I'm actually going to short pay this, and I'm going to be changing this to $10,000. You'll notice I could have selected multiple invoices here. I could also have selected credit notes if there was a credit note associated with this particular customer and payment. Once you're satisfied with the information that you've entered, you'll notice that the remaining amount will go to 0. So that means the value that I have selected at the bottom under the amount to pay column is equal to the amount of the payment that I received. We then say Save in Journal, and then we can repeat the process and do the next payment. Now, to get back to our lines, we're going to click the back arrow, and we're going to go into lines. If you want to add additional payments here, you can do that. You can do that by clicking the New button. You can pick the customer record here. So just to show you a different way to do the same thing, because there are multiple ways to apply payment to an invoice, you can go to Settle Transactions. Again, you see the list. You simply put a check mark on what you want to pay, and then you would click OK, and then that would take you back to the screen, which would then allow you to pay those specific invoices. Another way to do the payment is through a payment proposal. If you want to say, hey, system, go out there, look at my customer subledgers and tell me what should be paid, you can go into payment proposal and say, create payment proposal. And then as you go through this process, the system will actually load all of the invoices that are to be paid, and you can do the selecting or the settle transactions on that screen. You also have the ability to do write-offs. So let's say in this particular example, we're not going to get the remaining amount. Then we could go to deductions, and we can say new, and we could say that this is a short pay, and then we can put in the amount. Let's just say they short paid us $50, just as an example here. Then we can go over here to our invoice, and we can reference our invoice number. So ours was 74. And then when I click save and go back, post this journal, the system will automatically write off that $50 against that invoice. And again, you can repeat this process over and over and over again. Another way of creating the customer payment journal would be to import the data from a spreadsheet. You could do that. You could import it from a lockbox. There's some configuration you would do if you are pulling it in from a lockbox, because you would have to get the mapping from the bank. So there's lots of different ways to actually create this payment journal. But as you're doing it, the system is keeping track of your customer subledger. So in the event that you do short pay something, the system automatically will leave that amount on the customer record as a balance to be paid at a future date, unless you do like a deduction and actually write it off. So the next part of this is to send it through workflow. If you have a workflow approval, you can also do attachments if you would like to attach something to the line, some kind of backup or something of that nature, or you could attach the backup to the actual journal header. And again, you do that by clicking the paperclip in the other right-hand corner, clicking new and file, and then selecting your file. All right, so once you've done that, it's gone through workflow, you're ready to post. And once you post the journal, then you've updated both your ledger as well as your subledger. And then that completes the process for doing a customer payment in Microsoft Dynamics D365 Finance and Supply Chain.